Hello everyone, it's Maha. Welcome back. So happy to be with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope everybody's doing really well. So, I was thinking a few days ago about how crystals have really become a deep and integral part of my life and just everyday life, and how they have helped me to become more of who I am. They have helped me tremendously in my spiritual practice and in my personal development practice. And then I got inspired to create a video sharing with you some of the ways that I work with crystals in my daily life. Some ways where I go really deep with them through really simple practices. So these are some of the ways I've kind of developed throughout the years. Initially, I began working with crystals and I was introduced to crystals through crystal healing, which is basically the major part of what we hear about and what we read about and what we know of crystals. To me, though, crystals and what they can do and how they can help us, guide us through our spiritual and personal practice extends way beyond crystal healing. So some of the ways that I've developed working with crystals are inspired by others, reading books or hearing people share about the practice. But a lot of what I'm going to share with you in this video is just my own unique approach, my own personal way of working with them, which has sort of developed throughout the years of me working directly with the crystals. So I'm just going to get started. I've written some point forms that I'm going to go over because I didn't want to forget anything, but I will just elaborate on them as I go along. So the first one is harmonizing my living space. Now, I intentionally and sort of strategically place crystals, especially when I first moved in here into my new place. I placed crystals that brought a specific and a very particular energy to the space and the space I wanted to create in my living day-to-day space in my home. So, for example, I have crystals that I feel are meant to be for just for my bedroom. I call them my bedroom crystals, and then I have my crystals that are meant to be for my living room space where other people are going to be entering. My bedroom crystals are more personal, more I guess the crystals I connect with on an emotional level. They are crystals that tap into the sensitivity of me, this more vulnerable areas of my being. So harmonizing my living space means just intuitively being guided and with intention to place crystals in certain spaces and certain parts of my living space to create the feeling and the energy that I want to bring in. So in my bedroom, for example, I have crystals that are generally light blue colors, pinkish, peach colors, softer colors, or crystals like selenite, clear quartz. I have clear quartz is one that I actually have. It's more neutral and I could use it anywhere really. For example, I have clear quartz in my hallway. I have a little table set in my hallway and I have clear quartz and selenite on there. I feel that when the hallway itself is just before you exit and enter the apartment is sort of a doorway or a gateway to the outside world, and when people enter, sometimes strangers that I don't really know might enter in, so I want to clear that space. And I also want to, when I walk into my place, cleanse my own energy from the outside world as I enter my room. So in a way, it's like the living space becomes a metaphor for me as a person, as a whole, and the energies that I want to bring in to my life and to my daily everyday life. I spend a lot of time in my living space, in my home, because I do most of my work from home. And so I want to feel connected to my living space, my home. So my bedroom crystals, and then I have more heavier stones like black stones and smoky quartz and those ones, or like petrified wood, grounding stones like red jasper, maybe tiger's eye for just grounding, cleansing, its properties for cleansing. I would place these in my actual living room or in my space where other people might enter. And also a place where I spend a lot of my time and also do a lot of thinking. So I have crystals that help ground me when I'm too much in my head, and crystals that help me with exploring my thoughts, like green aventurine is a great one because I find it more grounding as well as great for focus. So that's one way, harmonizing my living space. And then the other way is jewelry, wearing jewelry. That's another way I work with crystals. So sometimes it's easy to forget that just by wearing a crystal, we are working with it. I know that my friend Joanne, when she made a video for her contribution to the Dreaming Moon series, she talked about labradorite. And I was telling her how I actually only have one labradorite piece, which I don't usually work with for some reason, but I'm always wearing labradorite pieces in jewelry. And so she reminded me that that's actually a great way to work with crystals, just by wearing them. And I want to make a video just on this topic, on the topic of jewelry, later on in the future. But here, so I won't elaborate too much on jewelry here, but here I just wanted to say that I might wear a crystal to bring a certain energy of the day. So for example, I work a lot with the days of the week and how they correspond to the planets. So by wearing a crystal that's linked to the planetary day, planet of the day, corresponding to that crystal, that's another way of working with not only the energy of the planet and the day, but also the energy of the crystal itself and its potential. For just as an example, on Tuesday relates to Mars Day, so I would be wearing hematite. Maybe I would wear something with red jasper in it. So that's just sort of what I mean. And even physically, crystals affect our body wearing them. I find that in Vancouver, where I live, it rains a lot. So sometimes I like to bring in the sun energy by wearing crystals related to the sun. So for example, I have a lot of sunstone jewelry, and I was wearing a sunstone bracelet the other day because it was just really raining heavily. So that's one way that, I could kind of, counteract in a way of what the outside environment feels like and how it might be affecting me. If it's bringing me down, I can bring myself up with the crystals. I can also wear crystal jewelry to set intentions. So depending on where I'm going, so for example, if I'm going out to a place where I need to set really strong boundaries, I'll wear smoky quartz on me. And I won't wear something like rose quartz that tends to open the heart more and allow more sensitivity in the energy. So things like that. Black tourmaline, for example, is a great one if I feel like I'm going somewhere that I feel kind of unsafe and I need to have more grounding. And then my third way of working with crystals, which is one of my favorites, and it's something I do every single day, is sleep, working with crystals for sleep. Now, deep breath. This is different from working with crystals for dream work. So for sleep, what I mean is helping me have pleasant sleep, comfortable sleep, peaceful sleep. And somebody asked me once on my channel if I could talk about how I feel crystal energy. And one of the ways I know that I feel crystal energy, well, two ways. One of them is at nighttime, I'm more sensitive to crystal energy, and I feel it more in my hands. So for example, I can hold the crystal in my hand and hold different crystals and decide which one my body needs for sleep. So if I'm having a day, if I've had a day that's been really full on, really go, 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 lots of mental activity, then I will hold crystals that I feel are more calming for my mind. So for example, something like a lepidolite, I have a big piece of it. I feel like it really helps ground me, ground my thoughts into the body. And I think that just even holding the crystal is a way of coming back to the body, which is really helpful for going to sleep, for falling asleep. Because a lot of times the problem we have when we can't fall asleep is that the transitioning, transitioning from the day mind to the night mind, because the mind has to be prepared to go to sleep. Some people are very lucky because they can just go switch and fall asleep. And sometimes people are just so exhausted from their daily life that they fall asleep with no problem. But sometimes though, we have anxiety, we might be feeling tense. And in that way, I think crystals are so tremendously helpful to help to ground the body, to help us connect with something that grounds us. So even just touching the crystal, feeling it in your hand, especially those soft ones, like I love tumbled or polished selenite. It's really great. Any palm crystals help you to kind of ground yourself and take a momentary break from the mind. And that switch helps glide you into the dream, into the sleep state. Calming. Crystals are really calming. So the crystals I tend to sleep with are not crystals that are linked to the element of fire or the planet Mars, really activating crystals, stimulating crystals, such as maybe tiger's eye or carnelian, or any orange colored crystals, any bright crystals, maybe citrine. I don't think I've ever felt guided to take those with me to sleep. So for soothing crystals, I gravitate usually around more lighter colored, more pastel or light colored crystals, or just even clear crystals. Sometimes even black crystals like black tourmaline or obsidian, depending on how you feel. So like I said, one of the ways I connect to crystal energy is at nighttime. I feel more connected. I feel like I can connect to the energy field of crystals better and more strongly. And also after taking a long bath or a long warm shower, or after swimming. I go swimming a lot. I love swimming. So just being in the water, that I find helps me psychically be more ready and more receptive to feeling crystal energy. Yeah, especially if I do that before bed. One thing to keep in mind though is just take care if you are, because I put crystals just directly on my chest, solar plexus area, sometimes on my forehead, sometimes the sacral chakra area. Just take care, because I've done this before. If you're using any brittle crystals, when you get up, you might drop them by accident. I have broken a couple of beautiful crystals in the past doing that. So you become kind of accustomed, like I am now after several years of sleeping with crystals. You become used to having crystals with you at night. Then you know that the first thing I do is take the crystals, put them on my night table so that they don't break. Blue calcite is another one that I love sleeping with. I have made a video on do you sleep with your crystals. I will link it down below. The next one I have on my list is dream work. So one of the ways I love working with crystals for dreams is, in a way, programming the crystal for dreams. So we often hear about how crystals can take in thought forms, so we can program them with our intentions. Well, in the same way, we can program the crystals with the frequency of dream state. So if you're sleeping with a crystal and you're waking up in the morning just before you transition into day, you might still have a memory vague or blurry, subtle memory of your dream. And what I do, what I've done throughout the years, which has helped me get stronger and stronger with dream work, is to hold a crystal. And I should say that I do wake up with an alarm clock, but I set the time earlier than I have to wake up so that I can press snooze a few times. And the reason I do that is because when I press snooze, in the time from the moment I press the snooze until the next alarm comes off again, I focus, I hold the crystal next to my body in my hand, and I just think about, or not think about, but I just go back to the dream. You know, I kind of linger in the dream state longer. And that's how I feel I'm programming those frequencies, the dream frequencies, into the crystal. So that over time, as I do that every day, every morning, that crystal, once I even glance at it, you know, the next night, even just look at it momentarily, it almost brings back that memory of the dream. Especially if I do that right before sleep and then I carry the same crystal. I think it's a really great idea to get to know one or two crystals really personally and developing a relationship with that crystal if you're using it for sleep and for dream work, because those frequencies get absorbed into the crystal. So we associate, you know, just by way of association alone, even if crystals didn't, we know that they do, but even if they didn't absorb the frequencies, just by way of association alone, even any object that you associate with something, like this is a paper clip, if I associate this with paper and putting it on the paper, then, you know, it's ingrained in my memory and it's like automatic. It becomes a pattern in my brain. So in a way, just doing that practice, developing that practice, if you are someone who can remember your dreams, or even if you don't, you can work on remembering your dreams, you know, that moment when you wake up, just setting your alarm clock a little bit earlier and then working on that, working on, you know, right away. You know how you press the snooze button and you want to fall back asleep again? There's that, like, that need to fall back asleep, that urge to fall back asleep. Well, instead of just passing out and fall back asleep, experiment with, what was I dreaming? What was I dreaming about? And hold the crystal. Try it. So this is my technique. This is what I've done, which brings me to the next point, which is psychotherapy. So, and it could be any therapy, really, any form of therapy, but what I have found recently, pretty recently, to be quite powerful and a powerful way to use crystals, and I have not seen or read this anywhere else, is working with crystals during therapy. So I, for example, will bring a piece of hematite. I know that hematite helps me with anxiety, and I'm seeking help from a psychologist for anxiety from time to time. And I will hold the crystal, and this happened by accident one day. I was just holding the crystal, listening to her talking, sharing, you know, during the session. I had the crystal in my hand, and I discovered that after the appointment, the next time I looked at that crystal, it's like the memories of what we shared in the therapy room, in the therapy space, the therapeutic space, just came back to me. Like I learned, or I really absorbed what we discussed. I mean, we know that when we do have therapy sessions, even if we don't, because it's usually 1 hour, and that's a lot of exchange that goes on in that 1 hour, and sometimes it's hard to remember everything. Even though it does, we know, get absorbed and programmed, or the memory of it gets ingrained in the subconscious mind. In a way, crystals will help with that in bringing you in alignment or more aware with the stuff that happens and gets stored in your subconscious mind. So I'll just have the crystal on me, but I will look at it, I will feel it, look at it, but I'm really engaged in the exchange I'm having with my therapist. I'm not really focusing on the crystal. Yet afterwards, I'll take out the crystal maybe the next day, and it will just suddenly snap me back to that moment, that conversation, or that aha moment that I had when I was talking to her. So yeah, that's actually been quite powerful and very deep. And crystals can really help with tapping into that stuff of the subconscious mind. I think there's just so much more to explore with crystals other than their therapeutic or healing properties on a physical level. I think more and more work is being done on crystals, and we're just discovering so much more potential. And then that brings me to meditation. And my daily practice with meditation is mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of thoughts, emotions, being more in the moment. And when I work with crystals, it's slightly different. So I will be holding a crystal, not listening to music or any guided meditation or anything, just trying to, first align myself with my breath, and then align myself with the energy of the crystal. Tune into the crystal. Ask subtly, quietly in my mind, ask the crystal, what does it want to tell me? What is it telling me? What is it all about? What do I need to know? Sort of like how we work sometimes with oracle cards or tarot. When we draw a card, we ask, what do I need to know today? In the same way with crystals, although it's more subtle because we need to listen more. We need to really quieten the mind and listen to what guidance is coming through for us through the crystal. And that could be any crystal you work with that you're comfortable with. For me personally, clear quartz, selenite, lapis lazuli, lepidolite, amethyst, sugilite, sodalite. These are some of my favorite ones. A lot of the dark blue, indigo, purpley colored crystals, and then selenite and clear quartz, of course. So I love doing that. And then creating sacred space, which a lot of us do, and there's a lot of material on that. Personally, I like to set crystals with candles. So my favorite thing to do is set a candle in a glass jar, sometimes tinted. If it's tinted, find a crystal that's the same tone. So for example, I have a pink glass jar that I place a candle in, and then I put my rose quartz, like a raw piece of it, a chunk of it in front of it, and sometimes around it, like different pieces all around it, like a grid kind of. But that like illuminates this pink light, pink glowy light, and I love that. So I love just placing crystals around candles at night. I don't turn the lights on at night. I have my salt lamp and just a bunch of candles around, really. I like it really. I like to set that atmosphere for myself at night and give my brain some time to calm down. I don't look at computer screens or social media at night, usually after dinner. So I like to just create sacred space for meditation using crystals. I might make a grid around my bed and set some crystals around me, and with candles, with incense, lighting some rosemary, my incense rosemary stick, rosemary lavender, all that kind of beautiful stuff. And then altar. So I have a few different altars, but what I do is I have a main altar in my living room, and I like to every morning set crystals of the day on my altar. I sort of talked about this briefly in my video on how I bring magic to my everyday life, which I'll link down below. What I do is for example, let's say it's Thursday, it's Jupiter day. So I will take some of my crystals corresponding to Jupiter, and I will just lay them on my altar. I will light my incense. I might want to anoint myself with a sacred perfume that I created for Jupiter, and I might want to wear that crystal as well. But on my altar, just setting the crystals of the day, it's like a really wonderful way to connect with planetary correspondences, the planet's energy of the day. And I talked in my video about how I like to drink the herbal tea associated with the planet of the day as well. So I love, one thing I love is bringing the planet's energies into my crystal work. And that has, to me, opened up working with crystals. I don't want to say crystal healing, but working with crystals really in an expansive way. It's become so much more universal to me than just using them for specific purposes, reading from the internet. And it helps you also to get to know yourself. Really, when it comes down to it, if I think about it, I feel that all the spiritual practices and, the different, the things we learn, psychology, astrology, religion, even developing psychic awareness, art, really it all comes down to one central thing, which is knowing yourself, becoming more self-aware, and becoming ultimately more aware, more present, being connected. And I think that crystals, to me at least, they've helped me so hugely in learning more about myself. I see crystals as representing the different aspects of myself, just the same way as I view planets in astrology as representing the different aspects of the psyche, all interplaying and having a relationship with each other in our whole being. And right, so they say, as within, so without, as above, so below, that whole thing all encompassing. And crystals are a great way, in my opinion and in my experience in my life, to deepen spiritual practice if you are someone who is called to working with crystals, which I am, clearly. They've helped me really see and connect with the world in a deep way. And perhaps, I guess I have always had this since I was a child, this connection to nature. I would say, though, that working with crystal has really deepened that. And that's all I wanted to say. That's all I wanted to share. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it was something that was food for thought and hopefully inspiring. Let me know what you thought about the video, and let me know if you have some ways of working with crystals that are unique to you, and if you would like to share that with me, I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. As always, I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you in the next video. Kisses. Bye.